Assalamualaikum everyone. Today I'm going to teach you how to do an overhead analysis sheet. Okay, the question is based on the past year, December 2019. I will show you step by step how to do the sheet. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, this is the paper December 2019 for ACC166. So this is the question. Usually the overhead is under question 4, but due to the change in the syllabus, it might be in another question number, but the formatting would be the same. Okay, Daddy Chef Manufacturing is a well-known manufacturer of sambal hitam in Jerantut, Pahang. The factory has 3 production department comprising of mixing, cooking, and packaging. Okay, so we know that from that sentence, they have 3 production department. Okay, so the production department in this process is mixing, cooking, and packaging. Okay, based on the question. And 1 service department. So they have 1 service department, service, which is store. Okay, the summary of the budgeted data for all department for the month of June 2019 is as follows. So this amount are all budgeted amount for the overhead costs. So you can see that direct material is as stated and etc. So the other overhead costs are as below. So the additional information is the production overhead are absorbed based on machine hour, and cooking department mixing and cooking department is paid of machine hour, and direct labor for packaging department. The actual data is as below, so this is actual data. So required, prepare an overhead analysis sheet. Okay, so there's actually 2 parts of this question. First, you have to do an overhead analysis sheet and an AOR. But today I'll focus on an overhead analysis sheet first, and we'll learn about OAR later on. Okay. So we can define from the question that these are the overhead costs. Okay, based on the title, these are the overhead costs. Okay, the indirect material and indirect labor is another overhead cost. Okay, because stated indirect. There's okay. So you have identified the overhead cost. So now you can do your overhead sheet. Okay, so this is the overhead analysis sheet as I shown you in the video and also in our slide. You have to use this sheet to calculate your overhead. Okay, so every parts of this format has been separated based on its needs. So you have to put the production department here. So the service will be put under X and Y depending on the question. If there's 2 service department, you will put 2. If there's only 1, you put 1. The same with production department. If there's 2, you put 2. If there's 3, you add another column. So just like our question before, we have 3 production. So there will be another column here, another column here, and our service department only has 1. So only 1 column is needed for service. Okay, so the basis will be put here. The basis for your overhead and the overhead cost will be listed under here. So you will have your total here. is the total for the row. Okay, the total of each row. Okay, so row does go horizontally, and the total overhead here, you will have the total of the column equals to total of row. Okay, so in this box, the column total will be the same with the row total. Okay, so this part is apportionment process. Okay, so after you finish your apportionment process, you will have the reapportionment process, which is transferring the production, which is transferring the service department cost to the production cost. So any amount in this side will be transferred to this side. Okay, at the end, you will have a total production overhead, and for the service, we'll have 0 amount or less than 1. Okay, the process is to transfer all the overhead costs to the production department. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so let's begin the process of doing an overhead analysis sheet. So the first thing, when you start doing the overhead analysis sheet, you must put in the production department and service department. Okay, so based on our question in the past year, we have 3 production department. Okay, this one, and the store is for our service. We have 3 production, 1 service. Okay, so this is all based on the question. Second is, you list out the overhead costs, which is also given in your question. So you have indirect material labor, supervision, electricity, depreciation on machinery, and factory rental. All these are given. So you must put them in the correct position. Okay, so moving on. So the second step is to apply the basis of apportionment. Okay, so this is all the same table that I have given you in your slide. Based on this table, decide your basis for the overhead cost stated here, number 2 here. Okay, you must find the suitable basis for each cost. Okay. Okay, so how do you define the basis? So in the question, actually already listed all the bases that you can choose from. Okay, so you choose from this basis and put it on in this column. Okay, put it one by one here. So everything is based on a question. You don't have to refer to the table that much. Just understand which overhead cost is defined on which basis, because they don't explain clearly here. So you have to choose one basis for each. So the basis for each cost. Okay, moving on. So after you choose the basis, which is the third step, you must understand the basis itself. So the first one is direct allocation. So what is the two condition to put a direct allocation as a basis? First, the amount is known. Okay, the amount is known. The second condition is the department is known. Okay, which means you know the amount and you know where the amount goes to for each department. Okay, so in the question you can see that for direct and indirect material, they already gave a specific amount, which means it's a direct allocation because you can trace where the amount goes to for each department. So after you trace and identify it's a direct allocation, you put in the amount given in the question. Okay, so for direct, you already have your overhead cost. For the one that is not directly allocated, they depend on basis for you to calculate. Okay, so now we'll calculate for the other overhead cost. So for total, actually you can fill in this column already because it's given in the question here. So this is the total for each cost. So you can fill in the total in this column like so. So you can have the total overhead here based on the row and based on the column, and your row will also end up in this total. So if your row doesn't add up in that total, there's something wrong in your calculation. Okay, so I'll show you an example for one row. I'll choose supervision, which depends on the basis of number of employees. Number of employees is here. So this table below here is also given in your question. This one. See the basis table. The amount is also given. I've just transferred it into another table for me to easily view the amount. Okay, so for mixing, you can see that mixing is based on number of employee. So go here, number of mixing is 12. So mixing only applies 12 over 40 of the basis, and you times with the total amount 4,400. Okay, the same with cooking. Cooking applies only 5 over 40. Then you time with the total amount 4,000. The same with packaging. They apply 20 over 40 times with the total amount of the cost. And for store, you can see that 0. So there only 0 here. So you will gain an amount of this respectively. Okay. So when you do and finish all this row, the total. Oh, sorry, misinformation from me. So it seems that I've looked at another row. So the total amount for store is actually 3. It's not 0. So 3. So the store applies 3 over 40. And you times with the 4,400. So you will gain all this amount, which will end up being the total cost of the overhead when you add on each other. So that is our target. The same with electricity. So they apply floor area, which is this one. So you will look at the 2,000 over 7,000. And you times with the total of the cost, which is 6,000. The same step is for cooking, packaging, and store. You will gain the amount. Okay, so for this part, actually total here is you have to manually calculate yourself. The question only gave you for this part, so the total you have to calculate on your own. It is the sum of the row. Okay, each row's sum. Okay, so after you complete all this table, you will have this information, which each row will be the same total of the total cost, just that you allocate depending on the department. Okay, so when you plus example factory rental, when you plus 1143 plus 857 plus 1714 plus 286, you will gain a 4000 in total. The same with the total of the overhead cost. So after you sum up on the columns for 31,800, it is the total amount for the column. The same with the other column. You will add up each row and it will be the same is 102,400. Okay, so after you finish the upper parts, which means you finish for the apportionment part, the apportionment phase. So next you have to reapportionment the cost, which means transferring the service department cost to the production department. So your focus will be this amount. You have to reduce it until it is 0 or less than 1, insignificant. Okay, so for your syllabus, you only learn direct allocation, direct methods. So you have to directly deduct the amount. So you can see that the amount is the same and it leads to an insignificant amount. So but how do you gain those amount? Okay, so you will the same as the before, you use the base of acquisition. So the base is here. Okay, so the base of allocation is the reapportionment is here. How do you get 4,522? You will have 150 over 300 times 9044, because you're trying to transfer the total to the production department. So you take the total here and put it based on its use. Okay, so for the number of store acquisition, each department has their own quantity. So you allocate based on their own quantity and you gain this amount. So when you add up on this amount, you will gain the same amount here. So you deduct the positive 9044 minus with the 9044, you will gain an insignificant number. So which means you already transfer it to the production department. So how do you gain total production? The total production is total overhead, it is 31,844 plus with the allocated reapportionment store cost to the production 4522. So you will gain this amount. The same with the other columns. So this is the budgeted amount, the budgeted overhead cost for each production department. Okay, so that's the end of the process of doing overhead analysis sheet. Hope you understand. If there's any question to ask, we can. I'll also try to explain back in our Google Google Meet so that you have more understanding on this calculation. Thank you.